Hi everyone, welcome to JUENFO Kitchen where we just enjoy food. So let's enjoy some Jamaican sweet potato pudding. So starting with the main ingredient, we have our sweet potatoes here. When you're selecting your sweet potatoes, please ensure that it's the purple skin ones. The orange ones are not used for Jamaican sweet potato pudding, alright? So these are exactly 2.5 pounds. However, if there are a few ounces over or under, we can still work with it. Over here I have my spices, or flavorings as I call them. Here I have some vanilla extract, cinnamon powder, nutmeg. I'm using freshly grated. However, if you have grounded, you can use that as well. I have some mixed spice here and a little bit of salt. I'm using sea salt. Here I have some cornmeal and my counter flour or all-purpose flour, and the flour is already sifted, and the cornmeal and the flour is what we use to bind the pudding. I have some brown sugar here, and this is 1 cup. If you want yours a little bit more sweet, you can add some more or reduce the amount if you prefer yours less sweet. Over here I have some coconut milk. I'm using homemade, but you can use store-bought as well. I actually have a video on how to make the homemade coconut milk, so if you're interested, you can check that out. I'll link it for you. And here I have some raisins. Now these have been soaked for a couple of days in some wine and rum and vanilla extract, so they are nice and plump and flavorful. There is also a video dedicated towards how to soak your fruits, so if you're interested, you can check that out. I'll link it for you as well. Of course, if you're not a fan of raisins, you can leave these out. Before I forget, I'm going to take some of my coconut milk here, about 1/2 cup or so, and I'm going to reserve this to make the custard on top, as you will see later on in the video. Now I'm going to start off by peeling my sweet potatoes. I have a little bit of oil here on my hands because these are quite stainy, so they tend to stain your hands quite a bit. You could also use some gloves as well. So some people actually add a little piece of yam or dasheen or cocoa in addition to the sweet potato itself. And these are all a part of the ground provision family, just like the sweet potato. And with the addition of the yam and such, these actually make your sweet potato a little bit more dense and heavy. But I personally prefer mine with just the sweet potato. I made one other version of the sweet potato using the yam as well, so you can look out for that. Alright, so my potatoes are now peeled and washed, and I'm going to cut them up small and put them in this bowl here with some water. And this helps with the oxidization, which is why you see them starting to turn brown. So when you place them in the water, that actually slows down or stops the process. Alright, so the traditional way is to grate your sweet potatoes. However, I will be using the blender method. It's a lot easier and way less time consuming. With that being said, you want to cut up your sweet potatoes very small so that your blender can break it down a lot easier. And the amount of coconut milk that we will be using is enough to actually blend it. I'm going back to the basics and using my old blender here. My new one actually failed me. So the lesson here, guys, never throw away your old appliances. You might never know when you need to go back to them. So I've already drained the water from my potatoes, and I'm going to be blending in a few batches, probably about 3 batches or so. And we blend to this consistency, nice and smooth. So I was able to get this blended in 3 batches, and as you can see, our mixture is nice and smooth. And you want to make sure that there are no potato chunks in it. Now we're gonna work on the dry mixture, so I'm gonna add some salt, nutmeg, cinnamon powder, and my mixed spice, also known as baking spice. Now before I add the dry, I'm going to go ahead and pour in my vanilla extract, add my sugar, and stir that in a bit. This is the liquid that my raisins were soaked in, which I drained, so I'm going to just add that in as well for a bit of extra flavor. And you could also add a little bit of white rum in there as well. And now would be a good time to go ahead and preheat your oven. I'm gonna now add the dry ingredients in a little at a time. And lastly, my raisins, which I've dusted with a little bit of flour in order to prevent them from sinking to the bottom. This is an 8-inch cake tin, and I'm going to grease it well and line the bottom with some parchment paper. This is margarine or butter, either one would work. So what I forgot to mention earlier is that some people add a little bit of butter to their pudding. Nothing wrong with that, but in my opinion, the coconut milk already has natural oils in it, so I just leave that out. I'm gonna place this in my oven and bake it for a total of 1 hour 45 minutes to 2 hours. But for the last 10 minutes, I'm going to take it out and then add the custard on top. While my pudding is in the oven, I'm just gonna quickly work on the custard. So to my coconut milk, I'm going to add a tablespoon of sugar and ½ teaspoon each of cinnamon powder and baking spice. Mix thoroughly until your sugar and spices dissolve, and then set it aside until you're ready to use it. Alright guys, so it has been exactly 1 hour and 35 minutes, which means that we're 10 minutes shy of the 1 hour and 45 minute baking time. As you can see, the middle is still wet, so I'm not gonna pour on my custard yet. I want it to set a little bit more. If I pour on the custard now, it's gonna extend the baking time, which I don't want, so I'm actually gonna let this go for the 1 hour and 45 minutes. It should set by then, and then I pour on the custard. So it's now 1 hour and 45 minutes. It's still a little bit wet in the center, but as you can see, it has set enough. So now I'm gonna add my custard and put it back into my oven. And in case I didn't mention this earlier, this is what gives it that nice sticky top when it's done baking. Alright guys, so after exactly 2 hours, my pudding is now done. So what I did after adding the custard, I just cranked up the oven to 400 degrees Celsius because I wanted it to bake a little bit faster. So I can't wait for this to cool so we can cut into it and see what it's looking like. So it's the following day, and now I'm going to cut into my sweet potato pudding. I suggest leaving your pudding in your oven for 5 minutes less, so instead of 2 hours, leave it in for 1 hour 55 minutes because I wanted my top to be a little bit more sticky. So if you prefer yours a little bit more sticky like I do, just bake it for 1 hour and 55 minutes instead of 2 hours. This Jamaican sweet potato pudding was so delicious. It had the perfect balance of sweetness and spices. Make sure to store it in your fridge. You could leave it out for about 2 days before you refrigerate it. Remember, there is natural coconut milk in this, so you don't want it to get rancid. Adding a little bit of rum to it will preserve it a little longer, but overall I recommend keeping it in your fridge, especially if you live in a hot climate. With that being said, hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, share and subscribe if you haven't yet subscribed, and let's stay connected. All my other social media links are in the description as well as the recipe. Thanks for watching, and until next time, live life to the fullest and just enjoy food.